ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum. We are midway through Ramadan now. May Allah accept your fasts. And just to begin with, if it's not gone so good for you, you haven't done as much ibadah as you would like to, you still have time left. Let's make the most of it, inshallah. This episode is about a famous Sahaba, and we promise you that when you watch this episode, inshallah, you will not forget this Sahaba again. Now, this Sahaba isn't famous, and I've got my esteemed, mashallah, Imam with me today. He's driven down all the way from Luton in order to deliver this beautiful story of this powerful Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Hudhafa. Now, Abdullah ibn Hudhafa is a man that most people don't know. If you're learned or you're into studying the companions of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you probably know him. But most of us, including me, prior to be fair, the only reason I know about this Sahaba is I went to a talk at the end of last year, and this Imam was given a talk in a masjid. And I've got, I can't focus for too long, but when I went and sat down and this Imam, for the first time I met him, he was delivering the speech, I was engrossed. It was so riveting and powerful. We thought we have to do this to spread it to the masses, inshallah, and we can benefit. There's so many lessons from it. Thank you very much, Ustaz Osama. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I appreciate
Jazakallah khair for having me.
Barakallahu feek.
Again, as usual, you're very kind in introducing me, but I'm not on that level. But Jazakallah khair.
You will be, inshallah. Before we start, I'd like to introduce my sponsor, the New Crescent. It's more than just the news. It's your hub for Muslim life. They bring you the latest stories, culture, issues that matter, while providing essential tools you need for every day. So do please check them out. Go onto their website, inshallah. Now, without further ado, Abdullah ibn Hudhafa. I want to start it off by saying, from the knowledge that I have of this Sahaba, this powerful Sahaba, that Umar ibn Khattab, the great Khalifa at the time, went and kissed his forehead and commanded every Muslim to kiss his forehead.
That's right.
The platform is yours.
Jazakumullah khairan. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil khalqi sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. All praises belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may His ultimate peace and salutations be upon the best of mankind, the one who graced this earth, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Amen.
As you quite rightly described, this was a great Sahabi, but before going into his story, to give a brief introduction, Abdullah ibn Hudhafa was a relatively young Sahabi, and he was actually around at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you could almost say that because of his age, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam played a mentor, father figure to Abdullah ibn Hudhafa radiallahu anhu. And they had a relationship where they would exchange jokes. They had a very witty, open relationship. And it just goes to show further how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't just the best of mankind because of his akhlaq. He was able to adapt to the young, the old, the rich, the poor, the governors, the non-governors. And in the case of Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, he played the role of a mentor and a father figure. Later on, about a decade or so later, under the caliphate of Umar radiallahu anh, Abdullah ibn Hudhafa played a vital role where even prior to becoming an ambassador for Umar radiallahu anh, he was actually an ambassador for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would send him to great emperors of empires. So the first person he sent to Kisra was Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, who was the emperor of the Persian Empire. And when he went to send the letter to Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, to Kisra, he said, "Give your letter from your prophet to my messenger and I'll read it." Abdullah ibn Hudhafa said, "No, my messenger has sent me with the letter and I have to give it to you by hand." Kisra read the letter. The Prophet ﷺ is inviting him to Islam, and he ripped up the letter. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa then went back to the Prophet ﷺ and explained to him what happened. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Mazzaq Allahu mulka," may Allah rip up his kingdom. And subhanAllah, later on, in the Persian Empire of Kisra, it was said that his nephews and sons assassinated him. Do you see? Now he goes into the next solid empire, but this is under the reign of Umar radiallahu anh, which is Heraclius from the Byzantine, the Roman Empire. So why did he end up there? There was a military expedition where Umar radiallahu anh was expanding Islam all over the world, and it was now touching the Roman Empire. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa goes there, but now they are caught by the Byzantine Empire. There are roughly around 100 to 200 captives, as the different narrations say. And whilst they're captured, the king Heraclius now wants to send a message back to Umar to say that I am going to convert all of your Muslims to Christianity, and don't send no Muslims here because we're going to do this all the time. So Heraclius inquired, who is the most noble man of all of these captives? Who's the most learned? Who is the one who dictates the leadership? The soldiers inquired and said, it's Abdullah ibn Hudhafa. He said, okay, call him. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa comes now to the courts of Heraclius, and Heraclius now starts to discuss the issue of Christianity with Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, but not by thought, not by any belief, not by any value. And this is the first lesson we learn by people who don't possess the truth cannot discuss and dialogue with you on the grounds of a fair discussion. Tactics have to come into play. Nasty, tarnishing of campaigns come into play. You're bought out, you're sold out, you're oppressed physically. Why? Because the one who possesses the truth, he has no fear to dialogue and debate with you. As for the one who knows he's upon falsehood, he's the one that has to watch his back and save his own face. So what does he say to him? First, he says to him, Tanassar, become a Christian. And he goes, no, I'm not going to become a Christian. And then he says, Usharikuka fi mulki. I would like to make you a partner in my kingdom. Now just to go back, this is the Roman Empire, by a massive, wealthy, classical, long-lasting empire. And it was also dominating other regions because of how big it was. And Abdullah ibn Hudhafa turned around and said to him, even if you gave me what the Roman Empire possesses and what Islam possesses now and what it will possess because of its expansion, I do not want it, and I will never renounce my religion for anyone. SubhanAllah, I was just thinking to myself how powerful this part of the story is. You learn a lesson, dear viewers, brothers and sisters, that the Muslim and his belief and life can never be bought by. You can never buy them. And just recently, if you look at like rap stars and pop stars, one of the most prolific rappers of our time, Stormzy, he was bought, with the price of £4.5 million via McDonald's campaign. Like McDonald's is nothing to scream and shout about, but do you see?
Yeah.
It's a little drive-through that we used to go through when we were 5 years old.
Yeah.
And he sold his honor for that. Then you look at, for example, Piers Morgan. He's another bought mouthpiece by Rupert Murdoch, who is a pro-Israeli, and that's why all the news outlets he owns are just pro-Israeli narratives. Piers Morgan is someone who's been bought out. You could speak English in a very silver-tongued way. You could have gone to the best universities, but ultimately you have a price. And if that price, and excuse my language, if your price is 10 million or 10 pounds, you are still some form of a prostitute.
Wow.
Because you've sold yourself. But the Prophet ﷺ, the tarbiyah, the nurturing he gave to the companions, even if they were poor in pocket, they were rich in heart, because you could never buy them. Even the early companion, Sumayya radiallahu anha, when she was martyred, they were a poor family. But she was honored with the title of taking the first martyrdom in Islam.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah? So that's the first lesson you learn. Muslims can't be bought.
Yeah.
Now, he's understood he can't bribe him with anything, so he puts him back into prison. And now Heraclius is thinking long and hard. How can I win this guy over to Christianity, to astaghfirullah, give Umar radiallahu anh a smack in the face? What can I do? He's thinking long and hard. He says, okay, every man has a weakness. And there are two weaknesses of men. The first one he began with was a woman. And it's known through Islamic tradition, if you were to read, just history books of Islam, when they were conquering different areas. In the Islamic tradition, it's recorded that Roman women were known for their beauty. They were very beautiful women. So Heraclius put inside that cell a woman. And the woman went in and she tried to seduce him, obviously, because if you don't want to, come on the way of being bought by money, then let me touch upon your innate masculine instincts.
Carnal desires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me go for that. The woman, she left the cell and she's come out broken. And Heraclius, he's eager to hear the news. What's happened? What's going on?
How many days was she left in the cell?
It was said between 1 to 3 days.
In solitude, so just
him and the woman.
Wow.
And she's trying to seduce him. She comes out and she's completely broken. And Heraclius wants to find out what happened. And she said, whenever I came to him from his right, he would turn to his left. Then when I would go to him from his left, he would turn to his right. And I have never felt more masculine in my life like I have today. In other words, by Abdullah ibn Hudafa, something which is a huge weakness of men. The Prophet ﷺ said, I've left two fitna for my ummah, money and women. It didn't even faze him. Because in his vision, in his mind, was something greater than just his innate individualistic instinct. And I think something that I want to mention here is a lot of the people, the reason why I think a lot of people get heartbroken and invest too much into relationships is because they don't have a wider vision to life. Had Abdullah ibn Hudafa's vision of life just been to earn money, look after his family, and just look after his own individual instincts, he could have fallen into that mistake. But no, he knew he was an ambassador of Rasulullah, and now he was an ambassador of Umar radiallahu anhu. And not only that, he was the leader of these 100 to 200 captives. This woman, compared to all this vision, she's nothing. I'm not going to give you the time of day. You are insipid. You are inconsequential to my whole purpose in life. And that's why she felt masculine. So now that didn't work, he's now taking away the organic needs, which is the food and drink of a human being. And you know, even in prison, by looking at the UK and the West, something which in fact inmates are bought with is like food and takeaways and stuff, isn't it? Yeah, they're bribed with nice foods. Abdullah ibn Hudafa is in prison. For 3 days, he starved, not given no food, no water, not even a morsel of food. The king is really trying to break his morale and spirit in the deen so that he can get him to convert to Christianity. He brings him out. Abdullah ibn Hudafa naturally is weak. He places in front of him on the table wine and pork. And in Surah Baqarah, there's an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has made prohibited for you the flesh of swine, except if you are in dire need. You are in dire need. And in Islam, we call it a rukhsa, like a permission that Allah has given you in a specific situation. For example, when you're traveling by, there are certain schools of thought that say you can combine and shorten. That's a rukhsa Allah has given you because of travel.
A mercy.
That's right. In this example here, he is potentially about to pass away. He's starved by, he's malnourished. So Heraclius says, look, go and have this. And he refuses. Heraclius then, because he understands a little bit of Islam as Islam's expanding, he says to him, look, your deen, in terms of hardship, allows you to consume what is haram, to ensure your spine is straightened out. So why don't you consume this? Wallahi, Wali Bhai, one of the most beautiful statements he's ever uttered was, and it's something we should remember now, the love of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam creates men like this. He said, even though it's halal for me, I as a companion of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and as an ambassador of Islam, I will not partake or consume any of the pork or wine you've placed in front of me, because in the later generations, I do not want any man or woman to say the companion of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam consumed pork or wine.
SubhanAllah. Wow.
I have a higher status. I have a duty that no one else has. I have a certain standing with the Apostle of Allah. I will not touch these things ever. And now another kind of lesson and reminder we take from this, us Muslims, dear Bhai, not in a form of arrogance or to think, we are superior than other people. The reason why we are most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because we have a responsibility towards mankind. Therefore, our modes of life, our lifestyles cannot be like everyone else's, Bhai. We can't just live the 9 to 5. Think about how to pay off a semi-detached house. Think about how to get a convertible or weekend sports car. You can do all that. You can work for your worldly life, but not at the expense of understanding your final goal is in the hereafter. Like Islam doesn't tell people to be paupers and to be poor. You can. but not at the expense of your akhirah. And the goal of the akhirah is central. And this is why Abdullah ibn Hudhafa's vision, his mindset, it all started from here. He saw himself as superior. And because of he saw himself as superior, he can't live a normal life. He has to live to a standard which normal people can't live, which was emulated by Umar radiallahu anh. So now the woman doesn't work, the money doesn't work, the starvation doesn't work, and now a sunnah of every single oppressor and zalim, as we witness today, when all of these sweet carrots don't work, they come down by with what? What do you think?
Violence.
A violence. An iron fist, brutality, murder, torture, genocide. Call it what you like. But when the people of falsehood cannot win the narrative, they force you and beat you into accepting it. And you see that today with the people of Palestine. They refuse to leave the truth, and they paid the price by getting bombed. They paid the price by getting carpet bombed. And they paid the price by getting shot by professional snipers. And inshallah, their ajr is only Jannah, bi-idhnillah. But the wider point being is, from all of this, is to understand very clearly that every single oppressor, when has he lost the battle? When he has to use his fist. And this is something we need to understand, because in the Middle East, you could say that oppression is clear. Your previous guest, I think it was Dr. Abdul Wahid.
Yes.
Now, other forms of brutality can take place here without maybe a direct sense of brutality. Take away your job, tarnish your name. You can't make a livelihood anymore. No. This is also a form of indirect violence. Do you see? But the reason why it's important to notice this is because the people who are on the truth, they know that those who are on falsehood are cracking now. So remain on the truth, because it's only a matter of time. So now he places him on a crucifix. This is where the brutality begins. Heraclius orders him to be placed on a crucifix. What happens now is he orders the guards to shoot arrows at him and throw spears. Let me see if he's going to flinch. Let me see what's going to happen. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, he remained calm and peaceful on that crucifix. And the reason why he remained calm and peaceful on that crucifix is because he was anticipating a spear to come his way or an arrow to kill him, because he was always waiting for the opportunity of martyrdom. And that is the highest rank you can achieve as a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that the shuhada in Jannah, they will take the form of green birds flying around the lanterns which hang directly beneath the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What could be greater than that?
Of course, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it will be said to them, what would you like to do? And subhanallah, they are the only ones in Jannah who will say, we wish we can go back, Ya Allah, in the dunya and give another life for you. And this is subhanallah what Abdullah ibn Hudhafa is about to say next. He's not flinching, he's not moving. And why is he not flinching or moving? Because he knows he's upon the truth and martyrdom could come his way. Now, just to draw another lesson by all of us in normal society in the UK, we may not be open to spears and daggers and arrows in the physical form. But all of us, Wali Bhai, are open to those things, but in the form of ideas which ruin us. Individualism, hypersexualized society, greed, theft, drugs, the American dream. All of these ideas I've explained are invisible spears and daggers that are thrown at us now. None of us are on a crucifix. Everyone's free. But it's important to remember these. Why? It's because these are not our principles to live life by. And in the end, you don't get anywhere anyway. Do you see?
Yep, dishonor.
Of course. Yeah. And even if you do attain it by means of halal, you spent your whole life really working for what at the end of it? A few figures in the bank account. Who's going to remember your name after you pass away? Do you see? What legacy have you left behind? And Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, when he was on that crucifix, he knew very well that why am I going to flinch for? I don't need to flinch because I know my Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my master is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Jannah is my final home. So they removed him from the crucifix, and Heraclius now like every single zalim, when their plan doesn't work, they increase in the intensity of brutality. He says, okay, I'm not going to deal with you now. All these captives that are dear to you, I'm going to bring them one by one. He orders the soldiers to bring forward a cauldron of hot oil and he boils the oil again, and it's now reaching a boiling point. And as you know, if you go to any like restaurants, even if you see meat being placed into hot oil, eventually the meat kind of dissolves and evaporates because of the intensity of the heat, and you can only see the bone. And the narration said, subhanAllah, that the only thing that was witnessed of the Muslim captives when they were placed in this hot oil was basically the bones of themselves. So they were passing away as shuhada. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, he's now put forward, and it's now his turn to be thrown into the cauldron. And he begins to cry, he begins to weep excessively. Heraclius says, stop, I've broken him now. Let me now investigate, and don't throw him inside. Do not throw him inside, I need to speak to him. Heraclius says, oh, hey, what's up? What's going on? Like, I'm now seeing you crying. Are you going to renounce this? Is this the part where you've broken down? And Abdullah ibn Hudhafa says, never. All my life, I have witnessed my companions meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of martyrdom. And I couldn't achieve what they achieved. But today my day has come, and inshallah I am going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a shaheed. And I wish if I had 100 more souls to give in his path, I would have give every single one without any hesitation. Do with me as you wish. Do with me as you wish. And at that point, Heraclius couldn't do that. Because in front of all of his court, he would be giving into the wishes of his captive, his slave, his prisoner. Then he says to him, fine.
Nothing's working.
Nothing's working. And then he says to him, I will give you my daughter. I will marry you to my daughter. And when he passes away, who becomes the next leader? He will become the next leader of the Roman Empire. He says, no. Then he says to him, kiss my forehead. Just kiss my forehead and I will leave you. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa says, no. Why should I kiss your forehead? I mean, who are you? Do you see what standing do you have? I am the Sahabi of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who are you? He says, okay, I'll release 60 captives. So now the negotiations start. I will release 60 captives if you kiss my forehead. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa says, no. Before I finish the story, by again, one lesson I want to mention here, subhanallah, is when us as Muslims stay true to our principles, our values, what pleases Allah, and we abstain from what displeases Him, as a united ummah, that is the day when we will have the upper hand and people will be eating from our hand, inshallah. That is the day where the negotiations can only come in our favor. We don't want a Gaza that was what was drawn 2-3 times. We don't want the 1967 borders. We don't want the 1948, what took place in 1948. We want the Philistine that Muhammad ﷺ set out to be for Philistine. In the narrations which he says, it will be the future capital of Islam. This is what Philistine is for us. We want a palace, we want a Jerusalem where every single Muslim around the world can go and pray Eid Salah with no harassment. Behind, inshallah, the future leader of the Muslims.
Inshallah.
That is the Palestine we want. Point being is look how you had Heraclius, a master, an emperor of a great empire, who is now negotiating with who?
Well, he offered his daughter, didn't he?
Of course. Of course. And subhanAllah, he's negotiating with his prisoner. He's not negotiating with another governor or like Umar radiallahu anhu. It would make sense if he was negotiating with Umar, because Umar radiallahu anhu is building his own civilization, which is expanding like wildfire. No, he is negotiating with a prisoner of war. Do you see? And it's a beautiful lesson for us as Muslims. Do not take a short-term win over a long-term loss. Muslims are not like that. We don't mind taking hardship and oppression so long as we are on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stay true to our morals. We know that victory is ours in the end. Either, like I remember Umar Mukhtar, he used to say, I will never surrender myself to the enemy. I either achieve victory or martyrdom. There's no third option.
And so many have followed his footsteps.
1,000,000%. Whole of Palestine, whole of Syria, all of Burma. Everyone has followed this. The people that were massacred in Bosnia, in 1995, the same thing. It's just the sunnah of Muslims to follow. So if we stay true to our principles as Muslims, we will be the ones who have the upper hand, inshallah. So now what happens is, Heraclius says, okay, I will release you and all of the captives here today with you if you kiss my forehead. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa said, deal done. Done, deal done. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa kissed his forehead, and all of the captives were released and they went back to Medina. When Umar radiallahu anhu heard of this story, it moved him. Why did it move Umar radiallahu anhu? And for those of the viewers that know this, Umar radiallahu anhu was a very difficult man to please. Why? Because his standard and bar of looking after the Muslims was just so high. Nobody could reach it. Nobody could reach it. I mean, Islam only expanded around the world like it did under his reign. And he wanted everyone to come into the deen. And the level of lifestyle that they had under the reign of Umar radiallahu anhu was so high, it was hard to be matched. So when Umar radiallahu anhu was moved by this, it obviously stirred something inside him. Umar radiallahu anhu, when he heard of what happened, he went to Abdullah ibn Hudhafa and he thanked him for what he did, and he kissed his forehead. And Umar radiallahu anhu says a statement which will remain etched in the history books of Islam until the end of the final times, where he said, حَقٌّ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ أَنْ يُقَبِّلَ رَأْسَ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ ibn Hudhafa وَأَنَا أَبْدَى. He said, it's a right of Abdullah ibn Hudhafa over every single Muslim for his head to be kissed, and I'm going to be the first one to start this.
SubhanAllah.
All the Muslims of Medina, they lined up to kiss the forehead of Abdullah ibn Hudhafa. Now somebody would ask why, like what was so great? What wasn't just great about his resilience, where he went through all of these tests, he didn't take no sweet carrot, he didn't take the kingdom of Rome, he didn't take the daughter, he wasn't seduced by the woman, he didn't even partake in something which was halal for him to consume. It comes to the final part of the story, which Umar radiallahu anhu was so moved by, because that's what Umar radiallahu anhu lived for. It was that he served as a protector for the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in a day-to-day, subhanallah, in the times we live in today, we see that there is no protector of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam today. There is no protector of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam today. So one lesson you learn, and this is me just being very frank and honest is even when we look at our rulers today, they've sat by a genocide for over nearly 2 years. Nearly 2 years of a genocide that's happened, where subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ said, a drop of blood from a single Muslim is more dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the Kaaba and its surroundings. So a ruler can be someone who, is finely dressed, very well spoken, knows his politics, knows diplomacy, but really and truly, what does it come down to? A ruler is only a true ruler when the interests of the people are his interests only, not his back pocket, not his front pocket, not how he can make a career out of politics. And that's what Umar radiallahu anhu taught us beautifully. Politics isn't a career. Politics is a responsibility. And that's why even at the end of Umar radiallahu anhu's reign, people said, look, take your son into the position of being the next Khalifa, the next leader. And he said, you are only doing this to say this, he's my son. And secondly, why are you going to make his akhirah even harder? Meaning when you assume the position of leadership, every single human being and even animal will take its right from you on Day of Judgment if you haven't done right by them. So at the end of the story is Abdullah ibn Hudhafa. The reason why Umar radiallahu anh loved what he did so much is because he defended the cause that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived for, which was the ummah of the Muslims, the ummah of Islam. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on Qiyamah, we know that he will utter twice one word. What would that word be by?
Ummah.
That's right. Ummati, ummati, my ummah, my ummah. So you can see that there was something that Prophet ﷺ passed down in the hearts of the companions radiallahu anhum, until even it got to Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, which was they all lived for the ummah. And this is my last message I want to pass to the viewers, inshallah, in the month of Ramadan. All of us tonight, inshallah, will be having a lovely iftar with families, with friends, cuisines of all sorts on our tables, inshallah. And we thank Allah for these blessings. But at the same time, we need to be protectors of this ummah. Meaning, anytime we see oppression against this ummah, we raise the plight of this ummah. And the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, whoever of you sees evil and can change it with his hand, let him. But we can't change it with our hand we're here. But whoever of you can change it with his tongue, then let him. And whoever can't do that, let him feel it in his heart, but that's the weakest of Iman. We do not want the weakest of Iman. We want what the Prophet ﷺ said, use your tongue. You know, everyone speaks about freedom of speech, even though it doesn't exist,
No,
right?
it doesn't, no.
All of us should be using this Ramadan to raise the plight of the ummah so high that it becomes the number one priority for Muslims to liberate every single suffering Muslim. Inshallah. And that's what the story illustrates beautifully.
Jazakallah khairan. I think,
Yeah.
again, I've heard this story now twice. Once in the masjid and now in here, alhamdulillah. And mashallah, your eloquence.
May Allah accept it,
Ameen.
inshallah.
And I'm sure the viewers, it's going to be etched in their head, whether they watch it whilst they're fasting or after they're fasting, whenever they get to watch it. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa will be etched in their brain. MashaAllah, remarkable men. These are Sahabas, so we're never going to emulate what they've done, ever. But if we can get even 5%, a percent, I'm being optimistic here,
Yes.
even a percent of what their courage, their resolve, their yaqeen,
Yes.
then I think, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, inshallah, on the right
Ameen.
path. Now, there's so many things that we can draw out from the lessons of Abdullah ibn Huzafa. And I want to take it back to our society now, our contemporary society. And mashallah, you made very valid points and you sort of widely spoke about regional politics. The first thing is ummah. Now, nationalism and really the inherent nature of man is arrogance, amongst other men, which is why we shed blood, which is why racism, whether you like it or not, will exist regardless. And as long as nationalism exists and as long as borders exist, racism will exist.
100%.
And racism is another vehicle for one man to tell another man that I'm better than you,
Sure.
whether it's through caste, color, education, wealth, etc., etc. Now, this doesn't really apply to women as much. If you look at all of the far right groups around the world, most of their members are men. You might get the odd one woman, or so it's a man's problem. This arrogance that we have is a man's problem. Even though neither of us, we live in England, right, and we don't really have influence over the rest of the world. Inshallah, we may do one day if Allah allows us.
Inshallah.
Now, I want to take you back to South Asia. Now, you're Pakistani and I'm Bangladeshi, right? Not that I have a connection with Bangladesh as such. I live here, been there twice. I'm not sure about you, but you're British. And I had an episode about this. Now, we all know what's happened in Bangladesh and how it has happened. Hasina has fled and we're in a new era. Now, in terms of unity and ummah, now, Pakistan, not too long ago, committed a genocide in Bangladesh. Now, that happened maybe 50, 60 years ago. I think my father was born in East Pakistani, so it wasn't too long ago. And those people that committed a genocide in Bangladesh, for whatever reason, whether you like it or not, they were Muslim. And if they've committed heinous crimes, then they'll be punished in the akhirah. They're probably dead by now, right? And Allah is just. And the people that are still alive, and some people still remember that vividly. I understand. I can't take their perspective. I can understand their hurt and sorrow. I understand that. And I'm not talking on their behalf. But generally speaking, Bangladesh is a Muslim country. And Pakistan is a Muslim country. So they're brothers. And to the rest of the world, you and I look the same. Mm-hmm. If a racist man looks at us and calls us both Pakis, you might say, oh no, you're Bengali. And no, he's not going to do that, is he? Let's semi-filter it. So, firstly, not that we can influence politics in Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now that Hasina's gone, whether she comes back or not is another story. Bangladesh and Pakistan must unite against India.
Yes.
Against India.
Of course.
As Muslim brothers.
Of course.
And should they unite through trade, through stronger and closer relationships, South Asia could be a Muslim dominant power.
Yes.
And that needs to happen.
Of course.
Firstly. So that's just regional. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just wanted to say what you mentioned about, the conflict that took place between Pakistan and Bangladesh. I also think it's important to see the person who was cooking and stirring the pot at the time. And in history, they were brothers. In fact, they were one land.
Yeah.
What was it that caused that regional conflict? It was the colonial white man. And here's a lesson I think which we should learn as Muslims as well, because Muslims shouldn't be bitten from the same hole twice.
Yep.
Whatever happened in the past,
Yep.
those people who did wrong to their brothers will be held accountable. But now, why are we being bitten from the same hole twice and allowing the colonial white man to run policies and choose our leaders and ruin our economies? Why are we doing it for? Why are we still accepting these, and why haven't we learned? So like you said, Bangladesh and Pakistan, their core is Islam.
Yep.
That line is nothing. It's an illusion.
Yep.
They rub out that line and they come together on the sake and the basis of Islam. Exactly what you said will take place. They will not just be a power. There will be a superpower house in the region.
Yep.
India will be shaking.
Yeah, they would be shaking.
India will be shaking and Palestine will be celebrating.
Subhanallah. Yep. Now, quickly moving on to the Middle East, and you made so many pertinent points about if the Middle East is countries that are surrounding one small. There was an analogy that was interesting, actually, that someone said to me. Now, this may be a seminal statement that was said a long time ago, but it's true. If Egypt turned around and everyone in Egypt spat at Israel, they'd flood.
It's true.
If everyone in Egypt turned around and spat at Israel, they'll flood. Now, Israel is surrounded by Muslim countries, front, back, left, right, apart from the sea, right? And we don't have any unity. And one more thing is that's remarkable about Israel, right? If you're being objective, they control the Middle East. They control the Middle East. They're doing as they please, even up until now. They're bombing Syria, and Syria has not really got an army. They're doing what they please with Palestine and so forth. And to be fair, we can draw a comparison about them fighting Hamas but killing everyone. But then still, they came to the negotiation table with all the arsenal and military that they had, the trillions of pounds that they had, and been supplied by everyone around the world, including this country.
Yes.
They still came to the negotiation table. So we've covered South Asia to the Middle East. And one thing that is profound and it's very important to say here is the leaders do not represent the people of the Middle East
100%.
and North Africa.
Jazakallah khair.
They don't represent the people.
Jazakallah
Change
khair.
your leader. Now, I'm not inciting a coup, but if your leader isn't representing its people, change him. Right? Is there anything you want to touch on that?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's a beautiful discussion, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
I even enjoy this part of the podcast as well. Is that yes, we should be looking for a change of leaders.
Yeah.
But even underlying that, because as you can see, Pakistan, I don't think so much Bangladesh recently, because Hasina ruled for, excuse my ignorance, by 30 years.
Possibly, I don't even know myself. Yeah.
But Mubarak, he reigned Egypt for a long time.
Yeah.
Then it was before Sadat, Abdul Nasser. It was Mursi, rahmatullah alayhi, and now Sisi. Pakistan as well, you had Zardaris, you had Musharraf, Nawaz Sharif, Imran Khan. And you look at all of our countries, you now begin to notice a pattern that it's not really the faces that are going to change the countries, it's the core policy and constitution of the country. And if those constitutions and those policies are tied anywhere by to Western colonial powers, you could even bring somebody like me with an Arab tongue, an Islamic culture and ethos.
Yeah.
But I can't do anything. Why? Because I'm remained shackled to the people that created this mess in the first place. So that's the only thing I would say, that inshallah, as Muslims now, and I think we can see this, and people are calling for this and hoping for this, even with what took place in Syria, we do not care about the face, because that face will change. But we want to see, what are you about, what are you going to bring, and what root level change are you going to bring? That's what I wanted to mention.
Now I want to bring it back to Britain and domestic stuff. So one of the profound things that Abdullah ibn Hudhafa did, and I took great lessons from this. This is from initially when you first relayed this story. And it sort of stopped me in my tracks, and I was just a bit shell-shocked when you said this, that a beautiful woman, now I want to give a bit more description to this. So a woman that is in liaison with a king is not a woman that you and I will ever meet.
Sure.
She's of stature.
Yes.
Let's compare her to Diana or, Kate Middleton. Even more beautiful, right? Now, if a woman such as that, and and mashallah, you can correct me here. A man that refuses or turns down a woman of a beauty and stature, a combination of both, what's his reward?
SubhanAllah, not just his reward, but his status would be similar to the status of Yusuf alayhi salam.
SubhanAllah.
Because Yusuf alayhi salam, he turned away the Aziz's wife.
Yeah.
Do you see? And anyone that overcomes any hardship, especially something which is so testing to innate nature, their ajr is purely on Allah with no limits.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So he rahimahullah, made this beautiful woman of high stature feel masculine. Made to feel masculine. And that sort of reverberated around me. And for the next few days, I haven't told you this, by the way, because I haven't really spoken to you on this matter. I was just thinking about this. And I'm far from, it wouldn't even be a comparison, it would be an embarrassment. But let's apply it back to this day and age, right? So a beautiful woman was made masculine. Now, if you look at the women of our society, I want to exclude Muslim women. I think very highly of Muslim women. And if most of our women, alhamdulillah, we sin. If you were to go to a mixed gym, I go to a mixed gym, you can readily identify a Muslim woman in a mixed gym. And as metrosexual and as hypersexualized we are, you can identify a Muslim woman by her izzah. Now, some Muslim women don't wear headscarf, and that's their business, right? They're not ignorant, they know the truth, that's up to them. But in terms of the way they carry themselves, you can say, oh, she might be Muslim, because Islam teaches this. But one thing about masculinity here, right? So we've got ordinary women. So obviously, I'm not trying to judge women here. There's a Likert scale, right? Beautiful, average. Even a woman that has not been blessed with any beauty, has 1,000 likes on Instagram or whatever it may be, whichever social media platform. She has men leering and lusting on her as she walks past the street, right? So even a woman that has no beautiful features, all the way up into a beautiful woman, right? But what's remarkable about this is, as men, firstly, we don't follow what our aqidah is because we're leering and lusting because we're weak. But secondly, we do it so indiscriminately that there isn't any woman that will be made to feel masculine in this day and age. So that's, if we apply that notion, what is bamboozling to me is, if a woman isn't made to feel masculine, if she isn't made to feel masculine, she feels in a woman, everyone's looking at her, leering and lusting on her, and it's a psychological question here. Why is it that a woman still feels the need to undress herself? So a beautiful woman, a very beautiful woman, consensus amongst all men from all races, you will still see her dressed in a provocative way. She'll get looked at anyway. So the masculinity element's gone. Nouman Ali Khan said something profound the other day. He said that it's inherent in us as men to look at beauty, and it's inherent in women to receive beauty. So, if you had a little daughter, mashallah, she'll walk up to you and say, Daddy, look, I've got a bracelet or a shoe. And you'll be like, oh, you look beautiful. And they'll be elated. Explain that to me if I've explained myself correctly to you.
No, Jazakallah khair. If I've understood by and I've got the right end of the stick, I would say, look, from what you've mentioned about how human beings innately want recognition, that's correct, right? But those innate feelings are conditioned by Islam. So for example, like you said, there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, and insan was created weak. And one of the commentaries on this ayah is that, i.e., man was created weak for the opposite gender. Does that mean now that any time a woman or the opposite gender, i.e. a man, was to give you an opportunity, you take it? No. Because your innate needs and weaknesses are curtailed and conditioned by a thought, i.e. Islam. Now, when you have innate needs that are conditioned by a thought other than Islam, which in the world today we live in a materialistic world where everyone needs validation all the time, you're going to get the level of mess that you see today. Am I making sense?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. You're going to get that. And also, I want to give, because for one question, you can have an overarching answer, but then there's so many layers that are worth discovering. For example, if you scratch deeper, and this is just an opinion I have, is when women especially do these things, I think to myself that what kind of upbringing or masculine protection have you missed out on in your life? And it may not be her fault.
True.
She may have had a father which was absent, brothers who do not give a damn about her, haven't taught her that you are special to me.
Yep.
For example, I've got a little sister. I love my little sister. In fact, my little sister's name is Layla. I love her so much. As an older brother, any person that was to harm her would make me very angry. Very angry. And I make it a point to tell Layla all the time, you are so special to me. Why? Because any guy that comes later on and flashes a bit of money and tries to come and, with some He-Man physique and show off, she'll be like, hold on, my brother set a bar for me this high. I'm sorry, you're a bit of a no person here. Do you see? So what I'm trying to say by is, yes, there's an overarching answer, but even in these issues, when I see these people, I actually see them as victims of a very broken society. And as our duty as men and brothers, even if these sisters are not relatives to us, we should be thinking about how can we protect, empower, and secure our Muslim sisters to not do this, inshallah. And the only way to do that, I'll be very honest, is, I'm not speaking about the non-mahrams here, I'm talking about the mahrams. Show a lot of excessive love to your women folk. Your mum, your wife, your daughters, your nieces, your sisters. Show them so much love. Because when you show them love, they won't feel a need now to get that recognition from other men outside. So that's what I tried to say, like, on that point. I hope I gave it some justice.
I think, you looked at a specific branch, and we can talk about this for days. I do want to move it on, and I think I want to particularly, and again, I think it's a man's problem. If men gave the respect to the women and didn't look at them, I think entire society will change.
Sorry, Bryce, can you repeat that?
If men, I think it's more of a man issue. Yes, women with the hypersexualized society that they live in, with, they think it's freedom, but you see them naked on a magazine and stuff. Look at someone like, Vera, of course, here, and I digress. What's her name? The lady on Suits. Meghan Markle.
Okay.
Meghan Markle, if I put on Suits now, I can see her in her bra and knickers. Forgive me for my crass nature. But she's a princess. Could you imagine? How's she a princess? I've seen her naked. The world has seen her naked.
SubhanAllah.
That lady's still a princess now. How the hell did Harry marry her? But only a Muslim thinks like this. Because a Muslim has honor and izzah over his woman.
And you mentioned something beautiful, quite profound, Wali, but I don't think if you picked up on it yourself, and it can even probably be a podcast in and of itself, is people only do things if that thing is a value in society. If a naked man or naked woman was to walk the streets of Egypt, Morocco, Pakistan, Afghanistan, you think this guy's a nutcase.
Yeah, true.
Or she's lost her marbles. She's lost perhaps much more. And they'll be like, go to a mental asylum or you need some slaps. Only reason why people are able to do it in society, and it shows you actually the nasty, rotten level of, the Western agenda and world order in terms of its values, is a woman. And look at the stark difference. A woman in Islam, the more she covers, the more people don't go near her.
Respect her.
She's respected. She's revered by. She's our crown jewel. In the West, the thing that's given value, i.e. there's demand for it, is take your clothes off. And it's a very good point that people only do what a high value is in society.
Allah. And we are slowly running out of time here. I do want to talk about Abdullah ibn Huzafa's resolve. And there are so many lessons and key gems that we can take from it. Haram and halal. Now, you said something profound about pork was put in front of him, wine. He was malnourished. He's not thinking. His faculties are not. He's disorientated. Allah said it's halal for you to sustain yourself, to subsist. And this great man, Sahaba, rahimahullah, you gave a beautiful explanation. I am a representative of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we apply it to Muslims in this country, and, I don't want to expose my sins, but generally speaking, we're guilty of being flippant and nonchalant about eating stuff that may be haram, but not caring about it. And this is truly a message for the younger generations growing up. The cigarettes, and a lot of us are guilty of that, but more so they'll eat, haram food in a very lackadaisical, we don't care sort of way. Smoke, weed, skunk, as a recreational thing. And one thing I want to get your thoughts on is, why is it that, and is it ignorance? Is it ignorance? Is it iman? Why is it that we distinguish halal and haram, but then within that halal and haram scope, we pick and choose what we think is okay and not okay? And particularly with kids nowadays, I think it's an endemic. It's not even a cultural thing anymore. Most of the kids that are hanging around and a bit cool, they're all smoking weed, and they see it as not a thing. But I just want your take on just a message to them, really, that, it's haram for a reason, but why is it that we're so, and it comes down to why we're weak and we're getting crushed, but I'll leave you talk.
No, I was just going to say, look, a lot of these things, for example, my weakness compared to someone else's weakness could be completely different. every single insan that steps upon this earth
Yeah.
has his own respective test.
Yeah.
And you know, for the youth, it could be trying to fit in with what the predominant culture is. But when you look at the net result of the predominant culture, it's either prison, a body bag, or you're just completely thrust out of your mind because of the amount of substance you've been taking.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you see? And in that journey of trying to fit in and be someone cool, for example, you look at the Netflix series of Top Boy. When you had Deshain and Sully,
Right.
they were close boys.
Yeah.
If you look at the end episode, they built this whole empire around Summer House and they reached millions.
Yeah.
They were killing each other. Do you see? Why though? They were killing each other because their relationship was based on something other than a relationship which transcended just transactional relationship. If they were selling drugs together, the moment they became competitors of one another, they became the worst enemies. In Islam, we do not make relationships transactional. You are my brother. For example, even though I've known you for a very minimal amount of time, I happily drive to Luton to come and do this podcast with yourself because inshallah there's great ajr, but also because you're my brother in Islam and you're doing something good. I don't make a buck of you and you do not make a dime from me. So my message to the youth is that don't fit in, you be the trendsetters. Set the trend yourself and you will see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor you in your worldly life and how He will honor you in the akhirah.
Thank you very much. And inshallah, if they are watching, they take heed. Finally, for the adults, and I think a key message for the adults, including you and I and everyone really, and I want to take it back to Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiallahu anh. His resolve and his non-negotiable factors, he will never renounce his religion. To be fair, he's a man of great stature. In this world now, and I sort of alluded to about picking and choosing, we accept this and we don't accept this. And I think we mentioned in another episode about how some of us are so confused now. We're celebrating Christmas, just the spirit of it. Oh, it's Christmas, and and you have Christmas trees in the house and stuff. And a lot of ulama say that's kufr. But that's more pervasive, and it's eating away at us, corroding our iman and our creed, little by little by little. It starts off as, oh, I'll accept it, that's fine. And then your kids come into the world and they accept a little bit more and they chip away. In 200 years' time, most of us are still going to be living in this country. There is a question if your kid or children are going to be Muslim.
Yes.
And one of the things that you drove home through Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiallahu anhu is being principled. And one thing that shocked me, and I want to mention this here, and it's really deeply saddened me, but I feel paralyzed. Dr. Afia Siddiqui. We all know her story, and I'm not going to rehash it. But over 1 million of us signed a signature. And I reticently signed. And I felt like the most emasculated man in the world. Because what I'm saying here is, let me beg someone that's locked her up, beg them, please, let me sign this so she could be locked up. If the Muslim world, forget us, we're Muslims in a non-Muslim country. If the Muslim countries in South Asia, in the Middle East, in some parts of Africa, North Africa is Muslim as well, right? The Middle East including North Africa. And then if you look at Central Africa, like Niger, Sudan, and all the other places, East Africa. If we are on principle, including us here now, do you think we would need 1 million signatures asking to beg someone else to release a sister that's been oppressed?
No. People would be signing petitions for us not to do what happened to us.
That's what would have happened. So, yes, I signed the signature because I can't do anything else. Right? What can I do? But look at the state of us. And I'm not saying all of us to go and change the world and restore justice. But the very thing, it's the small things that eat away at us. If we think of ourselves as one body, and you're a microcosm and I'm a microcosm, and if I don't do my job properly, eventually the body will collapse.
And you've doubled the work for the other person.
Exactly so. So one thing I want to drive home really, and please add to this, is we need to stay principled. And that starts from consciously, we're going to sin, we're sinners. It's not sinning. Not sinning. Ramadan, this is a blessed month of Ramadan. The shaitan is locked up and we're a lot more conscious. But after Ramadan finishes, most of us will go back to our old ways.
Sure.
And we'll pick and choose, oh, this is a sin that we can do. Oh, yes, we can do. Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas. I'm just being nice. I'm being cordial. I want him to like me. you mean happy Christmas? When I get told happy Christmas, I don't celebrate it, mate. You can celebrate if you like. And that's my response now. But when I was younger, I was a bit more, what's the word? A bit more flaky, a bit more, I didn't have a backbone as much. And I'll be honest and say that. You know, you learn from your mistakes. But now if someone says happy Christmas, I'll say, listen, I don't celebrate Christmas, mate. It's going against my religion. I'm actually renouncing my religion, so yeah, whatever. But anyway, if you want to add to that.
No, Jazakallah khair. I think, again, another beautiful point profound that your lovely points being raised here, alhamdulillah. You know, if, for example, you had a straight line, and like you mentioned, the beautiful analogy is generation after generation. If I, as a father, move away 1 degree and I move 10 steps, a lot won't change in the course of that path. Now my son steps on the same and he moves another degree. And then his son and his son. There's one straight line which was Islam, which is from you and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That point begins with you and ends with Allah. And then you had 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree. And where do you reverse when you turn away from Allah? You go to Jahannam. And we seek refuge in Allah from that.
Amen.
But the point being is that when you stay principled, the final result of that is honor in dunya and bliss in al-akhirah. And Umar radiallahu anh, speaking about Abdullah bin Hudafa, because he was the representative of Umar radiallahu anh, Umar radiallahu anh said a quote which the large part of the Muslim ummah echo today. He said, نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام. We are a people whom Allah honored through Islam. So Allah, He's giving you the ingredient here. We were honored through what? Islam, nothing else. فَإِنِ ابْتَغَيْنَا الْعِزَّةَ فِي غَيْرِهِ أَذَلَّنَا اللَّهُ. And if we seek honor in anything other than it, i.e. Islam, Allah will humiliate us. So, what you just said, if you're not principled, you're going to be humiliated. And no man, no woman likes to be disgraced or humiliated, even from an innate perspective. People like honor, people like an elevated status. And Umar radiallahu anh, even if you look at him before Islam, he came from a very kushti background. He lived the kushti life. When he came and he became a Muslim and Islam was set in stone in his heart, he mentioned these statements. Until today, when the ummah has lived by these statements, we've seen it come into fruition.
I quickly want to draw on celebrities, and you beautifully mentioned Stormzy. Now, I don't know Stormzy, and I don't care about Stormzy. He could do what he likes. But I think, and this is just my opinion, when you're not worshipping Islam, you're worshipping everything else. Because we're the only religion, the only creed, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, the only monotheistic religion that we don't bend.
100%.
The Church of England has bended and it's going to continue bending. We don't bend.
That's right.
And we are going to do an episode where I'm going to have liberal Muslims on and they're going to tell me how they bend and I'm going to make them straight again. Inshallah. And Stormzy doing that, it doesn't surprise me. And he was humiliated. Yes. You know why? Because I think, personally, what are his backstops? What are his red lines? There are no red lines. Could you imagine if a Muslim did that?
Yes.
Look at Khabib.
Yes.
Khabib equally is bigger than him. Can you ever see Khabib doing anything?
No.
He was in front of an Irish mob saying, Alhamdulillah, I know you don't like this.
That's right.
Alhamdulillah, I know you don't like this. A man of stature, may Allah preserve him.
Ameen.
He's a Muslim.
That's right.
It doesn't even compute in our head to sell our religion. However poor or rich you are. Yes, we're weak. And the ones that do, what happens to them?
Yeah.
They're disregarded by the people that just bought them.
And by their own Muslims.
And by their own Muslims. SubhanAllah. I just want to finish off giving you the last one, inshallah, if there's anything you want to say before we wrap up.
No, I just want to say that, firstly, by Jazakallah khair for having me again.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
May Allah accept it from all of us. And, Ramadan is a month of blessings. Ramadan is a month of virtue. Ramadan is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the skies for his du'as. And there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so generous that he never turns away the one who raises his hands to him empty-handed.
SubhanAllah.
And in Laylatul Qadr, we should all be making so much effort and dua with the work plan afterwards to enact that dua, to inshallah alleviate the plight of the ummah. And like you said in the final statement, stay principled on Islam, because only through Islam we will become honored again, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. I want to wrap up here, inshallah. Whenever you get to watch this episode, inshallah, please subscribe to our movement, be part of our movement. This channel, again, I have repeated it many times, is for the people, by the people. Influence us, give us topics to address. Come on if you have a story. We're here to help everyone, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Only goodness can come from this, inshallah. I just want to say, Imam Usama, mashallah, his knowledge and his delivery, I think, is as good as anyone else out there.
Allah accept it.
Allah accept it. I mean, and inshallah, I want to see Imam Usama be at the forefront in Britain of preaching and beautifying. May Allah give him tawfiq. And inshallah, in the few years that are coming, inshallah, he grows and he develops, and he is one of the key representatives and ambassadors of us, inshallah. So I pray that that happens. Lastly, inshallah, have a blessed Ramadan. Use up everything you can, as much as you can. Please share this episode. There's ajr in this, inshallah. And if you don't hear from us in Ramadan again, Ramadan Kareem, an early Eid Mubarak, and we'll see you after Ramadan, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.